Well, hello again, Mount Calvary Church and Mount Calvary Christian School students. It's good to be back with you again. My name is Ryan, and I'm one of the youth leaders at Mount Calvary Church. It's again good to be with you. We are going to continue our study today in First Corinthians, specifically looking again for the third day here now at chapter 12, verses 21 to 31. So why don't you pause, go take a minute, go read, and then come on back and we'll get going. And so hopefully if you've been keeping up with our study, you'll recognize that the passage that we're reading is very much a continuation of what we've done the last 2 days, and even more so a continuation of what was done that Pastor Jonathan did yesterday, where we're in this whole chapter of chapter 12, and for still a little while in this book, we're going to be talking about spiritual gifts. And we've kind of defined it as it's a unique, spiritual gifts are unique spiritual abilities given by God to believers for the purpose of advancing His kingdom, both in His church and around the world. And so this is our topic, and this is what we're looking at. And yesterday, Pastor Jonathan talked about the middle kind of section in chapter 12, and talking about the body of Christ and how Paul used this illustration of being a part of a body, that we are unified and that we're all part of the same body, and yet we're very different in the different parts that we have. And we kind of left with this idea that God has given you a gift, and He's entrusted you to use it, and we want to make sure we do that. We want to do that well. Now, it was interesting as you look back through what Pastor Jonathan talked about yesterday in verses 12 to 15. It was a lot about how it's easy to put down yourself in regards to the spiritual gift that you may have. In regards to, the passage talks about, well, if I'm not a hand, or if I'm not a foot, or if I'm not this or that, then I'm not important enough. And again, it's that idea of putting down yourself. And today, hopefully, as you read this, you'll see that it's kind of a little bit of a different angle. This is more so about putting down of others. This is more about a pride issue that Paul is addressing. Like, it seems like might be some who are in the church that are saying that there are other people that aren't as important because they don't appear to be as gifted in certain areas. And I just love this analogy that Paul uses of the body. There are definitely parts of the physical body that people don't really talk about a whole lot. Often what gets the most attention are the things that we can see, right? Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your head, your arm, your legs. And you know what's interesting about almost all of those things? I just kind of thought about this as I was reading this passage, where it talks about in the passage, like the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor the head say to the feet, I have no need of you. You know what's interesting about a lot of those parts that we get the most attention is you can actually survive without a lot of them, right? Like, there are definitely people that exist without an arm or multiple arms, or people that exist without legs, or people who can't see, or people who can't hear correctly. Like, there are a lot of people who the prominent things that we think about as being part of the body, that they don't have those abilities. And Paul is basically saying in this passage, he's saying that the eye can't say to the hand that I have no need of you. The head can't say to the feet, I have no need of you. But he says in verse 22, on the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. You can't do it without these parts of the body. It's interesting. I don't know if you've tried anything different or new over the quarantine period. If you've picked up a hobby or tried to do something maybe that you otherwise wouldn't have done. For me, that has been running. I've actually picked up and tried to start running. I don't want to call it a hobby simply because I still don't like to do it. But I feel like I can't use the excuse of, well, I don't have time anymore. And so I've started to try to run. And even though I kind of hate it, I'm excited by the progress that I've made over the last month or so. Now, with that said, after I started to run for about a week in the middle of March, my left Achilles started to hurt. And even as I say that, I would imagine there are many, or some of you at least, that have no idea that you even had a part of your body that was called the Achilles, and you have no idea where it's at. And just for the record, it's on kind of like the back of your heel, where your heel kind of connects with your calf, and it's called your Achilles. And my left Achilles was just starting to bother me to the point where it would be difficult and challenging to walk and up, especially stairs. I found to be challenging. And again, it's this idea that it's not something I thought about every day until I didn't have it working like it was supposed to. And why do I why do I share all that? It's just a reminder that what we might deem to be unimportant part of the body is actually really important to my physical ability to do basic things. And our spiritual gifts are function in much the same way. Our diversity in spiritual giftings and ability are just that. They're a gift to be celebrated. And I know for me in this time of quarantine, there have been days that I'm just in a bad mood and I'm critical of people, especially my family. And I don't say it out loud, but it's almost like I'm saying that I wish they were more like me. I just feel like if they would just follow what I wanted to do and do what I want to do, things would be better. If they were just like me, then things would be better. And Paul is saying here in regards to spiritual gifts that we need to celebrate and appreciate those around us for the giftings that God has been given to, or has given to them and given to us. And I think if we're not careful, Pastor Jonathan spoke yesterday about how the diversity, there's diversity, but yet there's unity. And I think if we're not careful, it's easy to let the diversity actually lead to division and disunity rather than unity if we're not careful about celebrating those gifts around us. One of the other things I'll just point out here is I just love verse 26 so much. It says in verse 26, if one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. And I want to just kind of leave you with this thought today. That can think about your family, your church, your friends. Is there anyone today that you know of that is suffering right now, that is struggling in some way, shape, or form? How can you enter into their suffering and be there? If one member suffers, all suffer together. How are you entering in to the struggle of those around you? Not to fix it, not to just try to make everything better, but to just enter in and try to be there and be an encouragement to them. Or maybe it's on the other end of the spectrum where if one member is honored, all rejoice together. Maybe there's somebody that you know of in your life that's being honored. There's something great happening, and they're like, how can you be happy and rejoice in that for them? And I don't mean that like, oh, I'm happy for you, but like honest and real and genuine rejoicing for them. And I just think it's easy to become selfish, I think, in these times, the days that we're living. But what if we looked at this and looked at our gifts and our abilities and looked for ways we could encourage and love and support those around us? The last thing I'll just point out is at the very end of this passage, in the back end of verse 31, Paul wraps things up, and even in before verse 31, he's talking about all the different gifts and abilities that people have. But he's just saying that we are one in the body of Christ, and that but we're also individuals in our gifts and abilities that he's given to us. But I love how he ends this chapter, and it just says that Paul says, and I will show you still a more excellent way. And I don't want to steal from tomorrow, so I'm going to leave that till tomorrow. But this idea of just that Paul's going to show us in chapter 13 just the beauty of how he wants these spiritual gifts to work together and the excellent way that he wants them to be used. Again, hopefully you're doing well. Again, miss you guys. It's been challenging, but I pray that you are doing well.